Hey guys, it's Vicki, the literal crafter in Western New York, and we are here today with another episode of my studio tour. We're going to begin by looking at this white cabinet. If you saw the prior video, then we've already looked at the stamp storage sections here. We're going to look at the rest of this, and then we'll walk through additional spaces in my primary work nook. So I'm going to back up a little bit so hopefully you can see the top. So those boxes up there are all ribbons. They're not trims, which are two different things to me. And I'm just going to grab a box so you can see. So yep, I've taken ribbons out of their packaging. I've wrapped them onto these cardboard bobbins, and you'll see a star on some of these. What that star means is there's more. So I didn't want to have to store a ton of volume of a certain type in the box. I wanted variety, as you could tell. So ones that I have more of have the little star on them, so I know when I get low to reload this from my overstock. While that's out, I will show you what's behind it. So this cabinet is 2 feet deep. It's a little bit cavernous, and I'm trying to make use of the space. I have bottle parts here. I have some specialty glues. And then over here, this is some, I guess you could consider it like overstock. It's extras, but it's things that I want to be able to grab quickly and not have to pull a tote out and dig them out. So things, I got distress resist spray in bulk, and I'll be using one. The sprayer breaks and I can just easily grab another one, use that, and then marry the two products. So that's why they're in there. But anyway, so again, just trying to make use of all of the space that I have. So the ribbons, giving you another view of that space, are all of those boxes. My trims are hanging on the wall. I'll briefly show those. You've seen them in other videos. So this cabinet has been customized. I have completely customized and reconfigured it. This is a fixed shelf. It holds the structure of the cabinet, so I can't change or move that one, but that's okay. That section works fine. We're going to move down to the right half of this and look at what's in here. So I mentioned in a prior video, when we looked at other areas of my nook, that I would come back to the cabinet because I was reconfiguring it. That project is done now. So I have a bunch of Tim Holtz card stocks, like the pre-cut ones in here, and then I have some of the 6x9s, I think they are. I got all of that very, very cheap thrifting and forgot I had it, so I put it in that box there where I can see it and use it. I have two very cheap watercolor pans, and then my Stampin' Up! Markers. So I hardly ever use these markers. They don't have to be in my nook, but they fit well there, and if I need the space, I'll relocate them. My stamps, as you saw before, this is mica spray, and it's stored. This is one of the Tim Holtz multi-storage tins. This just shows me what colors of mica are in there. Pink, red, orange, yellow, and green are all in here. And they fit pretty well. I stuck a piece of packaging in here just to hold them, because if I take this out, they will shift around. Just a little storage tip for you. These are the swatches of the colors that are in this tin. So if you are a mica spray fan, if you have the entire palette, it fits into 2 of those. My other one is down here. So we talked about stamps previously. These are all of my full-size oxide ink pads. The minis came out recently. I wish they were out 2 years ago when I first learned about distress. But I now have the full palette and full size, so that's what I use. The next shelf down here, oops, I'm gonna kneel down so that you can get a better look here. This is all my spritz, distress spritz by color. Then I have the other container of mica, so it's blue, purple, and naturals. And then I have, these are the full-size distress ink pads that I have. I don't have many in the full size. It's fine, I don't use them as often. I do have many of the browns and neutrals, but I keep them on my work desk, and we'll look at how those are organized either later in this video or another video. Think of this box as a junk drawer. It fits nicely in the space. These are kind of awkward to store, so I put those in here. I have this large blending brush. This is for my neutrals. And then I have 6 more in this box. I very rarely use them. They're stored here just because they kind of go with the ink pads, considering purging those, because I just don't use them. Then down here, these are all of my distress minis. And then these are the archivals that I have. So you can see I have some empty space right here. This has been really efficient for me and effective. So these are just little plastic containers, and they have offcuts of ribbon. I have lace snippets, cheesecloth, colored snippet pieces, neutral snippet pieces, and lace, larger pieces of offcut lace. And when I'm working, especially when I'm working smaller, I need just a little piece. This is so convenient to have. I just grab one, grab what I want. And when I'm cleaning up from a project, it's an easy way to store those offcuts. Behind this, it's just empty storage. So I have an empty multi-storage tin, an old Stampin' Up! Plastic photo box. Because it fits there, I put it there. This is one of the bins that I got from Walmart. Obviously it's empty. I also have 2 empty, this is the alcohol ink storage tin. Either in this video or another video, you'll see why I have these empty. I just relocated my alcohol ink stuff. So this is available for storage. All of this is empty. Oop. Pull that out. So this box really takes up that space. It makes that shelf usable. It's empty. This box is empty as well. Those are in there because they fit. And then this is cord that I use for binding journals. Eventually I'll get a little box to use this space. So I talk about customizing your space a lot. Right now, the only thing in this area is my cord. If I have a need to use this space bigger, I'll take the shelf out, I'll relocate the cord, I'll get different boxes. But for now, the shelf is in there, so I'm using it. Okay, let's take a look at the other side. So, let me get the camera angled a little bit better. It's hard to see in the back because it's dark. But there's a bin here that is empty. It's there simply because it fits. So these envelopes have been in here for so long, and I stuck them there as a reminder to me. So they feel like they're very thick and they feel like watercolor paper. They have a texture to them, and I want to play on them with my watercolors or my spray inks. Even though they're here to remind me that I have them and I want to play, I still haven't done anything with them. But I'm going to put them back because they've been there forever and I know they're there. Okay, so I have a few of these domed foam blending tools. This is all glitter. I don't use glitter that much, but I certainly do have a bunch of it. And then I have the small blenders. These are actually probably 20 years old. They're from my Stampin' Up! Days. This is just paint brushes and some distressing tools, water tools. I have table salt and coarse ground salt, beeswax, various tools that I use primarily at my work table. This goes with my spray station. So I've got salt water, regular spray bottles, black and white acrylic paint sprays, distress resist sprays. And then in the back, I have my re-inkers for oxide, distress, and archival. And again, they may not need to be in this immediate workspace. They store well there. It's a good use of the deep space at the back. So I leave them there. My stamps, which I talked about in a prior video. And then I have this water bin. So when I'm using stencils at my work table, I just slide them into the water, and then at the end of the day, I go bring everything to the sink and clean it. Occasionally, I have like an 8x10 or a bigger stencil that I'm using. If I'm just using it with ink pads, I set it aside, I clean it at the end of the day. If I'm using it with pastes, as soon as I'm done, I take it to the sink and clean it. This is empty there because it fits, it uses up the space. More storage space. This is all my watercolor crayons and pencils. And then there's empty space behind that, and then empty. And this is sequins and pieces that I would tend to use for shakers are all in there. So those are kind of shaker materials, if you will. Okay, I don't believe we've looked at this yet in any of the videos. Whoops. So let me just back up so you can see what we're looking at. I want to share some perspective. So in front of me here is my spray station, which we've looked at. I've talked a little bit about, I have embossing stuff. I have jump rings and eyelets in here. And then I have cheesecloth dyed and neutrals in there. Paper clips and pins are stored in here. And again, this is a shelf that I made to customize my space. So we're going to look underneath. Again, I believe in using all the space. So I would never sit at this table. So all the space underneath it is available. This tote here is my overstock tote. So I have a cheat sheet of what's in each box. And the boxes are labeled 1 through 4. And then I can see some other things in baggies. And this is, so these actually need to go in here. So when I get things that need to go in, I'll kind of set them on top. And then when I get a few things, I take everything out and put it where it goes. I try not to have a ton of overstock. This is it. I don't really go any bigger than this except for ribbons and lace. And it's stored there because it fits. This other bin back here, this is, I keep the tops. So all these boxes that I use, like the photo boxes and stuff I use for storage, I keep the tops. I can work in them kind of as a shadow box. I can use them as trays for various things. And then there's different pieces in here that I can use. I could turn that into a tag, for example. They're kind of mixed media project type pieces that I've gathered up and put in the bin, and occasionally I go through that and get rid of the stuff that I haven't been inspired for. So this has my 2 paper trimmers. my big and my little. And then, so this is colored lace. And these are the colored lace pieces. If you've watched my prior video, you know I have a hanging unit where I have a whole bunch of lace hanging up. So some of this has come off of my hanging lace. I'm gonna angle the camera a little differently here. Okay, so these are just colored laces, and then this is lace pieces that I've taken off of clothing and kind of kept intact. So this has a zipper on it. That I might use on a journal cover, for example. So I left it intact to use it as a unit, or I can cut it up. And then there's some bridle pieces too. Like this is kind of a large piece, probably from the bodice of a gown. So I left that. Again, that might be great on a cover, or, you know, if I'm doing something for the wall or whatnot. So these are in here because they have, I guess, they're larger pieces that are intact. And down here, this is really embarrassing. I'm sure I'm not the only one with stuff like this. So I thrifted a whole bunch of ribbon. And I put it in bags by color because if I wind this on those cardboard bobbins and try to put it in the boxes that I showed you at the beginning of the video, they're not going to fit, right? And I would have to go through and purge, and I'm just not ready to. I have the space for this, so it's in here. I know it's in here, and I do pull from it. So think of this as overflow ribbon. And that's just how I get around having to purge ribbon. I also have a couple pair of scissors hanging here. So these are like to cut. Those will make like a stamp edge, like a postage stamp. And then I have the Guggenheim pinking shears. So again, getting things off of your worktop and getting them hung is a huge space saver. Okay. So I think you saw this before, but a quick refresher. I have my heat drying tool hanging. I have my embossing gun hanging. And then in here, so here's the funny thing. Well, I think it's funny. It's kind of ironic. When I got into junk journals, I said, I don't need a lot of fabric. I'm not going to do a lot of fabric. Well, I have just too much fabric now. So this is black and white patterned fabric that I've purchased. I don't think any of my stamped or painted fabric is in here. No. So that's black and white, smaller patterned pieces are all in there. Now, I won't let myself go beyond this, so I can't keep getting more until I use some of that. And this is going to be weird with the camera for a second, but it's just stored against the far wall in my main nook on the floor. Above that is trim. Okay, so then I have over here fabric. I'm trying to back up so you can get the perspective. So it's black, gray colors. Then I have a small collection of silk. Right here is all silk. Then this might help some folks, I don't know. So for me, I have to be able to see my fabric. I can't stack all that up in totes. I'll never use it. So in here, these are thin fabrics that if I try to stack them, they slide. You know, everything just kind of slides off of them. So I folded them in this photo box so that I can still see them, but they're all like thin or sheer or slippery fabrics that are in there. Then I have batik, I think is how you say it. I have a small pile of fabrics over here that I've painted, dyed, etc. And then on the bottom there, the bottom two shelves, are a mix of some larger patterns, some heavy pattern, some heavy fabrics, a lot of florals, tend to be things that I would lean into on a journal cover. That's not all my fabric, guys. Okay, I'm going to skip the top of my work table for now. And we're going to look underneath. Just moving my phone so that I can see what you're seeing. Okay, so underneath I have this furniture mover. Right in front of my heater. I got to turn it off. There we go. Okay, so on the furniture mover is my 12 by 12 paper pad and paper storage. I don't do very much with 12 by 12 cardstock, so that's in another area of my studio, and I don't have much of it. So all of my paper pads are stored upside down, bound side down, I should say, and they all have tabs. So I know this is a vintage pad. By storing them bound side down, I can quickly flip through. So I have several vintage, so I can flip through and see what one to pull. I do have a bunch that are not labeled. I call them my pretties. These are the pads that just have, you know, beautiful paper in them, multicolor, etc. So those are all together. And then I have folders at the back by color, and this is for individual sheets. So I'm just going to pull one so that you can see how I did this. So this category is one-sided but dyed. So I pulled out a bunch of one-sided papers, and then I dyed the other side. So some are coffee dyed and some are otherwise dyed. And so they're organized and labeled by the way that I'll look for them. So there are times that I want a one-sided paper, but I want it dyed. And what I did is I took two folders, taped them together to create one large enough to hold the 12 by 12 paper in a way that I can see the tabs at the top. So they're just overlapped and taped. One thing I should mention, in case you're interested in this type of storage, is the folders are labeled twice. So they're labeled at the back and the front. And it's so that when they're in here, I know where one ends and the other begins easily. It makes it easier to pull. I do have at the front some other papers. They're not 12 by 12, but they make sense to be in here. Some of them are found papers, like these vintage album covers. And then I have a grouping of papers that I purchased recently at a sale that are absolutely gorgeous. I have plans for them, so I left them out. Next to that, I have sticker and rub-on storage. So the blues are rub-ons, and I'll show you how the storage works. So I had a oddly large volume of these envelopes. These are just like thin yellowish envelopes. The big ones, they're like 9 by 12, I guess. So I cut down just the front. I folded that flap down to give it some structure. I taped an envelope on the front, so I have the envelope pocket, the pocket behind the envelope, and then the big pocket so I could store different size things. And then I reinforced the back with scrap that looks like a folder, like a hanging file folder side, and so that they would have better structure to stand up. So that's how I made the envelope storage. So I have rub-ons in blue, stamps in pink. I have a sticker book that I just got and I've already used. I got that for Christmas. And then some other sticker pads are in here as well. And that whole thing is on a furniture mover that slides, you know, under my table. Something I want to point out in case this is helpful to anybody about this furniture mover. So I'm going to get the camera down here. There's two pieces of wood here. There's one here and one here. The furniture movers come with an open frame. So there's a piece of wood here. There's these two carpeted ends and then one of these in the back. So the middle of this is actually hollow. I added a piece of plywood to the top because my sticker toe is small and I needed a solid space to put it on. So that's another way to make the furniture movers really usable. Okay, so let's take a look at, I'm gonna back up just to give you some perspective. So I'm standing near the back of my primary Nook. What's in front of me here is kind of in the entryway of the Nook, and we're gonna take a look at what's there. I have a 3-tiered cart. I made this piece of wood to hold my laptop. I don't use this for my laptop anymore. So you can see the top has a tray, and I could just use that. This piece of wood buys me a little bit more space. It has a lip on it that kind of clips on. And I use this, like I have a couple master boards in progress, a couple pieces I have some plans for. Occasionally I go through and I clean all that up. On here I have these sentiment sticker sheets. Sentiment, PET. These have been in here forever. I just didn't feel like putting them in my sticker storage. They're easy to grab. They're quick grabs, so that's why they stay there. I have some color wheels, which if you know me, they don't help me. These are a whole bunch of labels that I thrifted. All different sizes and shapes. And I make stickers with them. And then, as you know by now, if you've been watching the videos, I like to categorize and sort things. So these are all different labels I can use. Down here is a, so this used to be on my primary work desk, and it's where I would stick things as I was working through a project. And I stuck it on here a while ago. I kind of forget about it. Like I just added this packaging. I have plans for that. I need to go through this, clean it up. I think we all have stuff like that. Then I have clear packaging to make pockets and windows. The bottom, so these are when I first learned about mixed media and distress. I watched a whole bunch of Tim Holtz videos and learned techniques. So these are technique samples with his sprays and the steps to recreate. And I do reference that. And then these are my swatch cards. So these are the distress spray ink, stain oxide, and a distress ink pad and oxide pad swatches. So that's what, oh, I have my palette knives on the cart. I love having those right here in my workspace. I use them all the time. And then I just have some fat labeling markers and things like that up here. I'm gonna roll that out of the way. So that cart typically sits here. I just move that and I can get to the next cart. And this is my brother Scan and Cut. These are scraps. So as I work at my table and I have scraps, I put them in here in these boxes, or I take from this box for my projects. And brace yourself, guys, because occasionally I just take these boxes and dump them into the garbage. Yeah, I know I can do things with them. I just don't, and I'm not inspired to, and I've learned not to try to force myself. Okay, then I have some vintage lace. Woo, no! I'll put this away later. I'm just going to get it off the floor so the cat doesn't have a field day. So this is my vintage lace. These are some individual wide type pieces. I have eyelet ribbon. I'm not really sure how to describe it. My cotton laces, and then my rickrack and my jute. So those are all in boxes like my ribbon, stored on this cart. And then all of these drawers are lace pieces. Many of them have been cut off of what you saw hanging in my lace storage. Some of these are just like, this is just vintage pieces. These are coffee dyed. Cannot explain what the difference is between that and other lace storage. It's just there, and I know it's there and I use it. Okay, I'm going to move that cart. So behind that cart is this cubby storage. This is stored upside down, just like the other one I showed you in a video. So these are feet. And then I added a piece of plywood. So I get a thin shelf here and a shelf on top to use. This is all, embarrassing. This is all overstock of papers. Much of this was thrifted, even all of these Delusions art journals. Believe it or not, almost all of these were thrifted at the sale that I mentioned before, fill a box for 50 bucks. And then there's Stampin' Up! Cardstock. There's all different papers here. And then my premium presentation matte paper, which obviously was not thrifted. So the two carts being in front of this is okay because I only need to get in here when I need to get to one of the art journals or I need to replenish stock. Okay, on top of this, these are just some rolls that I made. These I learned about in the BB Bash. So if you're not familiar with BB Henry art, BB Bash, I strongly recommend that you look into it because it goes from February 1st to February 14th, and it is an amazing experience, and guys, it's free. So when I first got into mixed media and junk journaling, I didn't understand art. In my whole life, I didn't understand art. I'd never go to an art museum. I was raised to be very practical and very functional. As a teenager, yeah, I had posters and stuff, but we as a family didn't have things just because they were nice to look at. This is learned for me in the past 2 years. The reason why I tell you all this is because of this section here. This is a mixed media piece I made, and I don't remember whose class I did it in. It could have been Andrea Garvey's class. Could have been the BB Bash. I don't know. Anyway, I love this. Whoops. It's one of my favorite backgrounds that I've ever made. So it's just sitting out here randomly because I like to look at it. I have mentioned in some of my videos, maybe not the studio tour videos, but some of my videos, I have memory damage, and learning is a little bit difficult for me these days. So I have created a whole bunch of reference books. This is a technique art book, and it's where I make notes of how I did something or a technique that I learned so that I can go back and do it again. Then I have one specifically for stencil techniques. I started a collage book. Right now it's just an Amazon envelope. You can hear the crinkle with some large papers. And then I pasted in some printouts of collages that I liked. I'm not good with collage, so I like to have references. Over here are some art journals, which is fairly new for me. This is a Reader's Digest book. Look at that beautiful cover. I got this for $1. Can you believe it? And I just started my first ever art journal. And this is going to be my anything journal. Just if I feel like doing something, I'll do it in this journal. This book is going to be amazing to work in. Look at those pages. Look at that lusciousness. That is cotton paper. It's thick. It's luscious. I'll have a lot of fun working in this. Can you believe that a friend gifted me 4 of these books? I just can't believe it. And then I did a class, and I really wish I could remember who it was. I can't. I have it written down, though. And this was an art journal that I made. And this is another one that I made. And I haven't done any more work in it. I just kind of stuck it together. So that's what's on top of there. And then above that is one of my favorite things to look at. I love when I come down to my studio seeing that wall of washi. I thrifted the shelving unit for $50. I do some woodworking, and there's no way I could have made a unit like this for $50. I do have some decorations in there, so if I get more washi, I do have room for it. Okay. Oh, the other thing I should show you is I have my brother's scan and cut mats. Let's see if I can I put a little nail in the end of my table and I hung them up because they're big and they're awkward, and that was just a great way to store them, so they're out of the way but easily accessible. Okay, so that was, I'll say the rest of my Nook. We did this in 2 or 3 parts, and I think I'll save my work table for another video so that it will be shorter and this one won't grow really long. But in another video, I'll talk about my work table, tabletop, the pegboard, how I did all that, marker storage, and so on. I really hope you enjoyed the video today. I would appreciate a thumbs up. Consider subscribing to my channel. Hopefully you will join me for the next iteration of the studio tour. And I hope you have a very crafty day. Bye, guys.